Hi, and welcome to Backstage with Gallery Theater. I'm Debbie Harmon Ferry. I'm your hostess today, and I am so pleased to introduce our guest for today's session, Nicole Holmes. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi Debbie.
Good to see you.
Good to see you
It's so nice to
too.
see people, even if
I
they're on a
know.
screen.
I
Yeah.
know.
Well, hi, we just know you've been a really fantastic supporter of Gallery and volunteer, and I thought it'd be neat for some people to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Wonderful. Can you tell us how long you've been involved at Gallery and how did you first get started?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I apparently have been going to gallery longer than I can remember. My grandparents, Frank and Joyce Messina, are very involved with the theater, and they always tell the story about when I was very young, and he was music director for, I forget what show it was. He's done 23. It must have been like 98 or something. They like sat me center stage on the main stage and just like got in the front row and stared at me. And so that definitely imprinted. I love, that's my happy place. But I did Wizard of Oz in 2001, and then I did a couple of kid camps, which is where I met you.
Yes.
And I kept going to shows, but I didn't come back to do a full show until the producers in September of 2016. And
Wow,
yeah,
that's recent. It seems like you've been there forever. That's
I know.
fantastic. In a way you have, but so before you came back for the producers, you were a dancer for a long time. Is that right? Do I remember that?
A little bit, yeah. I did ballet for a couple of years in elementary school, and then did the kind of middle school cliche of like, no, I don't want it. And now as an adult, it's true, like, oh, I wish I would have continued with all that.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So you did the producers in 2016 and you've done
Yes.
a number of other shows since then.
Yes.
What are a couple of them that stand out for you?
I think the one so far the one that I had like the biggest part in was Reefer Madness in March of 2017, and that show was very interesting, and it because I realized how different each show is, because you're going from a show that's like 2.5 hours long to a 90-minute, so 45-minute acts, and then doing midnight shows and 2 shows a night, and doing 2 shows a night, and the next day is daylight savings time because it's the spring and you're tired. um, Wizard of Oz was also a fun one because it was, you're doing it again for a second time, even though Seth wouldn't let me be a Lullaby League girl again, which I thought was unfair, but whatever.
So you did it in 2001 and then you did another version of it several
Yeah,
years later. Neat.
17 years later.
Wow. Fantastic. Excellent. And
Yeah.
so you've been on stage for all of those you mentioned. I think you've
Yes.
also done a great deal of work backstage.
Yes. Yeah.
So what are some of those experiences?
My first backstage experience was, I think it was Gin Game in the spring of 2017, because during producers, we had a smaller cast. So the ensemble members, all 4 of us girls, I think everyone had at least 10 changes in that show. And at the top of Act 2, for anyone who's familiar with the show, uh, everyone goes through about like 5 to 10 changes in about a 15-20 minute span of time. So I got really good at quick changes. And so people have asked me multiple times, like, can you be a dresser, which is someone who helps facilitate quick changes? And so that's where I got started there. I've done stagehand, moving set in between scene changes, and I really have fallen in love with training for assistant stage managing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And for those that are not as familiar with stage managing, what kinds of things does that position do?
So assistant stage manager, it can depend on like your production team, but typically they're the ones backstage and they're calling cues. They're down with the actors, so in case something goes wrong, they can communicate up at the booth, like, hey, keep it dark for like 2 more seconds, or communicating just the different things and running and making sure everything goes smoothly.
Excellent. Excellent. The organization behind it all, huh?
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite role in the kinds of things you like to do at Gallery, or do you like them all? What do you like about the various aspects?
I think where I'm ultimately happiest is on stage. I love whenever I can do that. I'm that person that loves ensemble work, so big dancing, big ensemble shows like Beauty and the Beast was really fun to do, which we just did in December producers is a fun one, just because you get to be different things, and if it's like 20 seconds on stage, it's still fun because you can play up your 20 seconds and it's ridiculous. But as far as backstage, I love assistant stage managing. It's fun having the headset. Anyone who's worked on headset before, that's a fun little club. You feel like cool. Now my current job is partially running around with a headset controlling people for 3.5 hours. So it crosses over. These theater skills are life skills.
I like it. Transferable skills. That is a good thing for sure. I do really appreciate, Nicole, that I can tell that you have the zest for being on stage and that you love that, but you're definitely a go-to person for the theater when it's like, boy, we have a spot and we need somebody, and who do you think might be willing to do this task? I love your attitude, and that you're often one that we turn to and say, has anybody called Nicole?
As many texts as I've gotten at 10 o'clock at night from like Seth, and like, hey, we need you.
Yeah, that's great. Your yes spirit is very welcomed at the theater. So, and in addition to those things, you've done on stage, you've done backstage. I think you've also helped with some events. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I worked on the 2017 and 2018. Yes. Gallery prom fundraisers. I helped literally like set up, planning out how we wanted to lay everything out. The stars on the wall 2018 that everyone eventually had to paint over, all of those are mine, having to get up and do all the different star stencils. And then I've also helped out with our cabaret events, and those have been really intensive as far as like helping pick out which songs, how to assign those songs, what order do we want it to be in, and there's like index cards all over the table, and you're like rearranging, trying to find out what a good flow for the show is and what's gonna keep it interesting. And it's a lot of work.
That's great, though. I think that's helpful for people to hear, because I think there are a lot of people who, if you don't see yourself as the singer or the lead or the onstage person, can see that there's lots of different opportunities, and they look very different. I mean, if you're a good organizer, we could use you. If you like to paint stencil things, we could use you.
Yeah, like I've been telling my mom, like, if you don't even need to like be a super good like detail set painter. Like, we just need like a wall painted or a door painted. Like, just come in, and it's super easy, and it's very appreciated.
Absolutely. In fact, I think I'm remembering that you were the volunteer of the year not long ago. Is that correct?
Yes, I got it for 2018. I got it in 2019. Me and Beth Stats, we tied for it. And I had no idea, but I should have been suspicious when Seth had asked me, because I tracked my hours finally for 2018 after spending quite a bit of time there in 17. And he'd asked me, he's like, you said 436 hours, right? Like, yeah. And then awards night was like a week later, and he said 400. I was like, oh no. And yeah.
Fantastic. So that is, just to clarify for folks, that is more than an hour a day for a year.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you see that as a positive thing or a taxing thing, or how do you view that?
Part of why I started tracking my hours was I was like, I'm spending a lot of time here, and part of, being of working age, I'm like, what would this like, what's the equivalent, what would I make? But I feel like it is worth it. It can be taxing at times. I think it's good to be honest about that. Like, we're all happy and chipper all the time, but sometimes it's like, it's work. It's hard work, but it always ends up being worth it. It's worth it when the event happens or the show opens, and kind of all of that stress of, especially for shows like for Tech Week, kind of all of that melts away opening night, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it was worth it. We made it. We're here. Like, you reach the top of the mountain, and it's all worth it.
Fantastic. So maybe you may have danced around this answer already. Maybe this was sort of it, but what would you say is the most challenging part of your involvement at Gallery?
Probably for me, I am very much a people pleaser. My hour show, I like to say yes to people. I like to help when I can. And I feel a lot of ownership with my work with Gallery, and it's a very important aspect of my life. That everyone involved is like my second family, and now 4 years in, that's even more true. So I do find myself sometimes being like, oh yeah, I have been at the theater every night this week, and like, I haven't seen my mom in a couple days because her schedules overlap, and she goes to, she works at 2 o'clock in the morning, so she's usually in bed by the time I come home. And, I haven't seen my friends in a while, my non-theater friends, but it all ends up being worth it. But there is a times where you just come home like, oh, I was there till midnight and I'm going to go back at 2 because the set needs to get done. And we open in 2 days.
Yep, good. Well, you're just leading me right into each question. So I guess I would say, how about what are some of the skills that you think you've picked up or things that you've learned from your time with gallery?
The biggest one and the one that's really I've learned is good to use on job resumes is talking about working with a group of people from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds towards a common goal. Because that's what it is, especially with big shows. You have a cast of like 36 people plus crew plus production team, and your goal is to get the show up and running and it being the best it can be and everyone's part in that. So that's been really important. And like I alluded to earlier, part of my current job, I have to wear a headset and for about 3.5 hours run service. And it can get hectic, but it's keeping calm and being able to be like, okay, I'm stressed out right now, but I can't let my team get stressed out. I can't let that translate because you don't work well in a hectic situation if everyone's stressed out. You have to stay calm. And that was the biggest thing. My stage manager trainer, Vicki Ragsdale, has always said to me, is like, the stage manager has to keep calm. You set the tone for the night. You have to keep it together.
Good. Well, it sounds like that's coming into play. So that's fantastic. Yeah. that is paid off in some ways, having those experiences. So how about, okay, the flip side of the question I asked earlier, what do you find most rewarding about your involvement at gallery?
It's really the people. The people. Every show I have, I make new friends, but there's like 3 like lifelong friends I get from every show, and then you get everyone together. So the people has been really rewarding, but also like with Beauty and the Beast, part of it too was afterwards, like seeing the audience, especially like seeing the kids and how they're just in awe, and on stage too, like the moments where you're an ensemble and you can actually get a good look at the audience. And you see people and their reactions and the energy you get back from them when they're really enjoying something or they're really laughing, and then talking afterwards in the lobby when they're like, oh, this was so great. Like, I needed this. This was hilarious. This is my favorite show. You were so good. You did justice. Like that stuff. That's amazing. Just to know that you had an impact on someone and made them happy, even if it was for an hour, just by getting on stage in a costume and doing something silly.
That's great. Wonderful. Yeah, I just had a chance to talk to some students recently and talking about how much we miss sort of that shared audience experience, whether it's sports or movies or theater, everybody laughing at the same thing at the same time. I think that's missing because of COVID. So hopefully looking forward to the day when we get that back. Yeah, that's right. Okay, and finally, how about, do you have any advice for people who maybe have never been involved in the theater but have sort of toyed with the idea? What would you tell them?
I think I would tell them, oh my goodness, there's so much here. I would say I remember I was super nervous despite knowing a lot of people. When I auditioned for producers, I was very nervous, and I was listening to My Shot from Hamilton on repeat the whole way to the theater, the whole way back, just to get myself. But everyone is very lovely. You're going to get people, we're excited for new people all the time. So you're not going to feel judged. You're going to get like welcomed, and people are just excited to see you. And we're obviously excited to teach what we know and share what our skills are, and get other people involved in this, and let them find that home that so many of us have found. But just go for it. If you have any sort of skill, like you can paint, any skill set, really, we can find somewhere to put you, and you can find a place, and you don't have to sing, you don't have to dance, you don't have to act. There is so much to be done backstage that is vital, just as important, if not more so, than what we do on stage, that we will find some way to work with you and you can share your skills.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do for gallery. I appreciate your willingness to let us get to know you a little bit better today. And I've really appreciated the chance to watch you grow up around the theater and kind of come into your own, from a young gal that, danced at drama camp to what you're doing today. It's been really rewarding to see that. So thank you for everything you do and everything you are. So
thank you.
Again, this has been Backstage with Gallery Theater, and today our guest was Nicole Holmes, and we hope to see you all at the theater one day soon.